representing their sense of reality.
That's right. Absolutely right. I couldn't agree more. And, speaking about implanting, perception, so to speak, I want to change gears a little bit and talk a little bit about Iran. This is possibly something that could develop into something really big. But what kind of bugs me, so to speak, about this is that we have this constant shattering, so to speak, about it. Advisors, think tank groups, everyone from Kissinger to Brzezinski to Condoleezza Rice or whatever, are going out and talking about that, they should invade Iran and this is the time and all of this. But yet, on one level, nothing actually is happening. Is it just fear-mongering, or do you think that they actually will go in, and could this then develop into something big?
Oh, I think they want to go in. When you go back to the document produced by the Project for the New American Century, which was created and peopled by those that dominated and have dominated the Bush administration since it was not elected. People like Cheney and Rumsfeld and Wolfowitz and all these people were involved in the Project for the New American Century, and they produced a document in September 2000 in which they named the countries they wanted to target, and one of them was Iraq, and they talked about the invading of Iraq and removing Saddam Hussein. They talked about Iran. They talked about North Korea. And the Axis of Evil speech delivered by Bush in the State of the Union address, I think it was in 2002, where he talked about the axis of evil of Iraq, Iran, and North Korea. That speech was written by a guy called David Frum, one of his speechwriters, who is one of these so-called neoconservatives or neocons that was connected to the Project for the New American Century and the network that connects into it, like the American Enterprise Institute. So in that document, they actually laid out the agenda that they wanted, and many other things too. Indeed, in that document, it says that this process of transformation, i.e. process of global control, would be slow and laborious, absent some catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor. And what happened, of course, 9 months after the Bush administration came to power, full of the people behind that document, and a year to the month after the document was published, America had what Bush actually called at the time our Pearl Harbor, 9/11. And that 9/11 was used, and is still used, as the excuse to advance the agenda that document outlined. So they went into Iraq, and it's no surprise or shock that it's coming to light now, and indeed it's documented in my books that the plan for the invasion of Iraq was started years before they actually started publicly talking about it. And so what did they have to do? Their agenda was to invade Iraq. So what do they need? They need an excuse to invade Iraq. And of course, I have this phrase that I came up with some years ago: problem, reaction, solution, for a mass manipulation technique, which involves creating a problem covertly, like a terrorist bomb or whatever, getting the people to only hear your version of that through the mainstream media, which tells them the version of that event that you want them to believe. You want them to say something must be done, this can't go on, what are they going to do about it, the reaction. And that allows you then to openly offer the solutions to the problems you've covertly created, which are changes in legislation and society that advance your Orwellian state. But there is another version of that, which I call no problem reaction solution, where you don't need a real problem, you just need to get the people to have a perception that there's a problem. And of course that's what they did with weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. There was no problem, but they gave a perception of a problem, and as a result they went in and bombed and slaughtered goodness knows how many grotesque numbers of people. And now they say, oh, it's a mess and it's terrible. Hold on, yes, but they're still there. And while it's a mess, they're going to continue to be there. They don't want an excuse to leave. It's the last thing they want.
Of course.
On the shadow people level. So what's happening now, Henrik, is that we're seeing Iraq Mark II with Iran, whereby we're in the same situation. They have an agenda to take over Iran and to use it to spark a wider conflict, which is what I've been talking about for the best part of 20 years. They want a conflict with China that will create a global problem, which they can then offer a global solution to, so it must never happen again, and that will be the world government, the world army, and all the rest of it. That's where it's leading. It's leading to a conflict with China. You just watch that unfold. I was saying that on radio shows like in 1996. You watch it unfolding. Anyway, so what we're looking at now is them desperately running around, trying to sell an excuse to trigger the conflict with Iran. And this sanctions thing that's just been announced, new sanctions against Iran, are all part of it, because what they did with Japan, part of the antagonism of Japan that led to Pearl Harbor, which they knew was going to happen, it was just another 9/11, to justify America going into the Second World War, is that they had they imposed sanctions against Japan, which antagonized them. And what did they do in the run-up to Iraq? They had sanctions against them that, even according to UN figures, cost the lives of at least 500,000 children in Iraq in the 1990s.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're looking at now. We're looking at a attempt desperately to find an excuse to target Iran. But, don't let's kid ourselves that this is all coming to an end as soon as Bush is out of power. Bush is irrelevant to this. He's just a puppet, like they all are. Yeah. And whether it's a Democratic president or a Republican president, the same agenda goes on because they're all controlled by the same force. I mean, the sanctions against Iraq I've just talked about were imposed by Clinton.
Yeah.
And then we have Bush follow him, and the whole thing continues. And the person they want next is Hillary Clinton, who makes George Bush look like a sissy. I mean, as presidents go, she is high in the satanic hierarchy in America. And she, when she gets in, then things are designed and planned to really kick off. So it's not that people say, oh, well, the Bush presidency is running down now and all this stuff. No. It's preparing to hand the baton to the next front person for this whole agenda. And like I say, it's a tea party compared with Bush, compared with Clinton. This woman is a serious piece of work. And
do you know?
I mean, I've gone into in the new book. I've gone into some of the background to the Clintons, and I tell you what, it is horrific.
Do you know if she actually is connected in some way by blood to some of these families? Do you know something about that?
Well, they all are, and you've now got George Bush in the last few weeks making statements in support of Hillary Clinton, who she's a Democrat. She's supposed to be in a different party, and the connections now between Bill Clinton and Father George Bush are so close that they're talking about it almost being like father and son.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, hold on a second. I know for an absolute fact, and I go into it in this new book, that Bill Clinton and Father George Bush and the Bush family and the Clintons have been bosom buddies going way, way back before Clinton ever came to power as a president. And if you look at it, Henrik, people live so often with cliches that become their image of how things are. So the more you repeat that America is the land of the free and America is the home of the brave and all this stuff, then people, one of the greatest forms of mind control is repetition.
Yeah.
But you look at it, we have in America at the moment 300 million people or thereabouts. And one of the things that is produced as confirmation that it is a free country, freest country in the world, is that anyone can become president. Now, that is probably one of the most ludicrous statements it is possible to utter. And when you look at it, Reagan came to power in 1980 with Father George Bush as vice president. The truth is, absolutely the truth is, that wasn't the Reagan-Bush administration, it was the Bush-Reagan administration. Mm-hmm. Reagan was there to read the autocue, do his B-movie acting bit, so that Bush, who was not an electorally saleable commodity, Father Bush, could get into the White House and run the show, which he did for 2 terms. Mm-hmm. Then, on the back of that Reagan-Bush period, Father Bush got a period of his own for 4 years. He then hands over to Bill Clinton, bosom buddies with the Bush family, who got 2 terms. Then he handed over to boy George Bush, who's had 2 terms.
Yeah.
And in 2008, we could have elected, because that's the plan, another Clinton until, 2012, possibly 2016 if she gets 2 terms.
Yeah.
From 1980, 2 families, both as close as they come, being presidents of the United States and in control of or at least symbolically in control of that country.
Yeah.
When anyone can become president, and it's the freest country in the world. I mean, take a deep breath, take a step back, look at it again. It's a total stitch-up, quite demonstrably. And the idea is that by the time that enough people realize what the game is, the edifice and structure of control, surveillance, and all the rest of it will be such that it will be very, very difficult to do anything about it. Mm. This is why we have a window of time now where people like me are trying to get this information out into the public arena and having more and more success in doing so, I have to say, and get an exponential curve of people waking up to this, so that we can bring an end to this nonsense before they get to the point where the cell door finally clicks shut.
Exactly, and that's also says something about the potential of the knowledge that is up on the level, so to speak, of the top guys at the pyramid, that they know that some kind of awakening process is taking place, either if they themselves are into how the ages or something like that come and go, and they know that okay, this is a new era coming in here, we're moving into something new, and we have to have the control grid, as it were, in place before this actually happens,
That's exactly right, because that brings us to a very important point, which is global warming. There are many levels to this. The global warming is caused, staggeringly, because who would have thought it, by the sun, by increased solar radiation, and by changes happening in the sun. And this is connected to changes that take place in cycles. And it's also connected to the Maya prophecies about 2012. I don't think 2012 is a year in 1 hour and 1 day in 1 year where some fantastic change is going to take place. I think it is symbolic of a window whereby a terrific change is taking place.